Welcome back to Star Wars The Bad Batch on TV Podcast Industries. We're back with the second season of The Bad Batch, Episode 1, Spoils of War.
Aren't clones supposed to look alike? So much for quality control. This one's too big, this one's too small, this one's got a face tattoo. They're real subtle. Hey now. Got a name, Brown Eyes?
Tech. However, the phenotypic eye color for all clones is brown. Iris pigmentation was not affected by our
as
mutation.
Fascinating as this has been, I have places to be.
Welcome back, Batchers. This is TV Podcast Industries. We're back with the second season of Star Wars The Bad Batch. Our first show of the new year. Could it be any earlier in the new year? We are back with Episode 1, Spoils of War. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Batchers. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this trio of bad clones, I am Chris.
We'd be good clones, wouldn't we? Well, we'd all be the same, I suppose.
Yeah.
If we were clones.
Depends how
well, we already are.
Works.
I'm just kind of, there's only slight differences. Today, I have a beard and no glasses.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have glasses, but no beard.
Yep.
It's kind of like that old game of Guess Who.
Yes.
It's just, how much grey hair do they have? Okay, well, that's that one, turn that down. Do they have glasses today? No, turn that one down. Do they enjoy Star Wars? All of them go down.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
I like it, Chris. I like it. Yes, nice to be back with our group of the Clone Force 99 again for another season. An interesting point to kick off their show, though, because it's following the best Star Wars content that's ever been out there with Andor, right? This is the first Star Wars show coming out after Andor. Luckily, I don't think they're going to be expected to follow up on it, but there are signs, since it's set in the same period, there are signs they've taken on board some of the things that were talked about within Andor. The start of the rebellion, the Empire growing in power, those things they will touch on in this season. So, kind of an interesting place to have a cartoon follow-up to Clone Wars, basically.
Yeah. Do you remember last season, like, one of the most interesting parts for me was, and I remember calling it out in the podcast, was that, they started talking about the changeover to the galactic credits.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was like, oh wow, that's something that we've never seen in previous. Like, it was the very much, okay, yes, we've heard the trade unions discussions and the trade federation discussions, and we had galactic kind of peace treaties, and we had some of those boring scenes, but this is more interesting. This was like, okay, when you get into the minutia, and a lot of the minutia now is in Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's now, I think that one of the interesting things, I'd love to say they took on board, but this was probably written well before and started animating well before Andor kind of
Absolutely.
really got in. But it looks like they figured out their tonal shift on what is Bad Batch and are moving into somewhat darker, like shades of grey, further shades of grey.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, that's it. It's like you said, with that whole thing in Sid's bar where she talks about Empire closing in, and I thought it was pretty sort of clear that the Empire's sort of tentacles are spreading through the galaxy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about time we should get into some spoiler-filled discussion about The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 1, Spoils of War. So make sure you watch the episode before continuing on. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, if you're new to the podcast because of Star Wars Bad Batch, make sure you pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast on any podcast player of your choice. You can also email us in feedback. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can join us over in our Facebook group, where we have a spoiler post up there for every episode of every show that we're covering. You can find that on facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, and we'll let you in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Derek, what are some of the episode details for this first episode of the second season of Bad Batch, Spoils of War?
Well, the executive producers of this show are Dave Filoni and Jennifer Corbett. This episode was written by Jennifer Corbett, the episode directed by Stuart Lee, and the story editor for the show is Matt Menkovets. Stuart Lee, interestingly, was a director on Clone Wars and on Bad Batch last season. This is the 6th episode of the show that he's directed. And Matt Micklovitz, if we didn't mention it last season, I'm not sure if we did or not, but he's the writer on the excellent Star Wars game Jedi Fallen Order. So a great writer, really. And he's the story editor for this show.
Good stuff.
Excellent. Yeah. And we have the sequel of that game coming out this year.
Yes, we do. Can't wait.
It'll be good.
Can't wait.
Looks really
awesome.
good.
Looks awesome. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the first episode of the 2nd season of The Bad Batch, Spoils of War?
Sure. The Bad Batch narrowly escape from a mission on the Vonduun carnivorous crab-infested planet of Zav Alox and return to Sid on Ord Mantell. There they meet the pirate Phee, who has just provided intel on a big score on Count Dooku's home planet of Serenno. Sid convinces the reluctant Hunter that this could be the score they need for the Bad Batch to be truly free. On the way to Serenno, Echo challenges Hunter on his unwillingness to approach Empire-controlled planets. Omega overhears Echo telling Hunter that saving her from Kamino means their lives will never be safe, but this score should provide the resources to save many, many more. On Serenno, the team encounters a battalion of clone troopers who have already taken 2/3 of Count Dooku's sizable war chest. While Echo, Tech, and Omega get trapped inside a transport container in flight, Wrecker and Hunter are pinned down by the troopers in Dooku's former palace. Hunter discovers a way out of the palace and Omega realizes the container will launch reentry thrusters if it's dropped from the sky. But as they hurtle towards the planet, the thrusters haven't engaged.
And the way that we cover the Bad Batch on our podcast is that we talk about our major blaster points for the episode. So let's kick off with blaster point 1.
Yes, crab is for dinner, everyone. When the mission to Zav Alox by the Bad Batch, where I think we saw it in the trailer with them being chased down by these carnivorous, fairly crabby crabs. Seemingly they can open chests with their big pincers, as Wrecker is running along the beach with some form of loot or intel for Sid.
Yeah, I have a feeling they could probably open armor with those pincers and chests. But the way I kind of felt it was probably that this chest had fallen and they were kind of guarding it, or people couldn't get through, so it took a group like the Bad Batch to fight their way through and get out of there with the chest. I think it was one of those kind of find the treasure and take it off the planet. I wasn't expecting this to be the opening scene of the episode. You're right, we did see this in the trailer, but because of the kind of action-packed opening moments of it, I was expecting this to be a mission later on in the season, but it's drop you right into the action with the Bad Batch again.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I think as well, just
cool and funny.
The pure animation of it, that opening with the kind of tropical beachscape, certainly with it being winter at the moment, I kind of got quite warm and sort of felt the need to be on a plane heading towards the beach, minus the carnivorous crabs, of course, for a bit of sunbathing.
Yeah.
I just thought the animation, it was just really beautiful, just how it was rendered, down. So yeah, really, it's just kind of an action opener, which is kind of what the Bad Batch is about with their missions. So, certainly for Sid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, for me, I absolutely loved the look, the feel. I was shocked that this was exactly what we had seen in the trailer.
Yep.
I opened it going, oh wait, hold on. Did I actually click on the trailer wrong? Is this kind of previously on? Although we've never seen it.
Right.
The animation, I previously had watched, Avatar, The Way of the Water, and you're starting to see water was always a tricky thing for animation and CGI and all that. And now I'm just looking at that video games, like The Witcher Ultimate, which now has like 4K textures and ray tracing and all those fun things that make no sense to most people. It all just looks spectacular. And then you get the fun, old school kind of Bad Batch camaraderie with Omega starting to show some form of, I don't know, like growth. If we had previously talked about how she is kind of growing further and further in the last season, with her bow and getting the helmet. And like, it was how can we get her to become more a functioning member of the actual team?
Yeah.
And here we have her fishing, crab fishing actually with a spaceship, because,
of course.
And then also just learning about every ship class and every type of ship in the world. Of course, that will come in useful.
Of course it will.
Later in the
Exactly.
but yeah, I enjoyed this. It was a fun opening, and it kind of, again, was just maybe people are joining the show for the first time. They don't want to jump in on season 1. They're just going to come straight in on season 2. That's fine. This kind of gives you a brief reminder of who these people are, their kind of individual strengths, weaknesses, that type of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. We have that very clearly pointed out by one of our new characters, Phee, who meets the Bad Batch for the first time and lists out all their individual traits that make them different, even though they all should look exactly the same. You've got brown eyes, you've got a tattoo on your face, so pointing out that each one of them are different. But I did enjoy this with Omega being more active as a character here. She's definitely helping. She's jumping into the fight straight off. She was very talented with that bowcaster by the end of the first season, and now second season you can tell this is now it's almost like her right arm. She's able to use it very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, she's got her skills there for in combat for sure. I mean, she's hanging off a sort of toggle rope on a spacecraft that is flying. So, she's going into the fight to sort of stop the carnivorous crabs from sort of attacking the ship, taking them off that. So, like, she is really integrated into the Bad Batch from that combat standpoint. I just like that slight contrast with having to do the, nerdy stuff of learning and memorizing all the ship classes of the Empire, which is, got to have good fundamentals.
Absolutely. And I think we can tell she's picking up lots of traits from her various dads as well. She's got the bravery of Hunter. She's got the attacking and jump in abilities of Wrecker as well. She's like really willing to jump into the fight and really enjoying it as well. You hear her after they escape from Zav Alox, you hear her saying, "But it was fun, wasn't it?" Which is not really Hunter's side of things. She's got the knowledge of tech and the instruction from Echo, of course, in her learning. So we have seen her, becoming her own person from her dad's, basically. Yeah. So I like that as well. Let's move on to our blaster point number 2, unless anybody has anything else about the mission to Zav Alox to mention.
No, blast away.
You love it.
I do.
Excellent. We're off to Serenno for our second mission. We have our return to Sid, of course, who's been giving their missions. We had a lot of fear for Sid last season that she'd disappear or she'd die or something last season. But this is still their base place that they always go back to get all their missions in Ord Mantell. So still as grumpy as ever. Annoyed that the batch took so long to do this last mission for her, but we get to meet Phee the pirate, who we find out has some more intelligence. So, as we mentioned earlier on, this is taking place in the period after Order 66 and after the death of Count Dooku. So we hear Count Dooku has left behind a massive war chest because he had a big castle and has had lots of riches.
He certainly had a massive war chest. Like those, those big sort of intergalactic transport ships. I mean, they were pretty massive.
They were
and with a lot of containers filled with Dooku's war chest, effectively. So it was massive. I think
I love when they randomly walk into one of them and there's enough riches to take care of them for the rest of their lives, basically, in just one random war chest. What if they walked into the one that contained like tons and tons of those boxes of jewels and gems?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, interestingly with this, there were two things. One, certainly don't mess with the Empire. I mean, given Count Dooku's death, then, we see that his Serenno, the city below his kind of citadel has been wiped off, by orbital bombing.
Yeah.
The Emperor was certainly making sure that nothing got out about his identity at that point. So it's all pretty well destroyed. Effectively now going in and looting his palace, with this war chest. So I kind of like that vibe. It's like, don't betray or don't sort of come across as betraying the emperor, even though he wasn't the emperor at the time. He was still the chancellor, because he hadn't yet revealed himself. He was held hostage on Dooku's warship above Coruscant. So, I like that notion that they then just completely destroyed his legacy, by taking everything and, bombing the hell out of his palace and his capital city of, Serenno. There's also Hunter. The other aspect of this I liked is, Hunter really is not happy about doing this mission, because he wants to stay off the Empire's radar. And interestingly, with the pirate Phee, there's obviously some additional intel that they're looking for, which we don't know what that's about just yet, but the Bad Batch here have to come through on their next mission, before she is going to give it to them, because, the intel that she's going to provide is not for free. So this is a critical mission in that sense for this piece of intel.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed, all these elements coming together on Serenno, sort of Hunter's apprehension, sort of the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, for Count Dooku. And also this potential intrigue of what Phee, has for them.
Yeah. One of the things I'm really enjoying here is the little, edges and corners that are being filled in about Count Dooku at the moment. One of the big strengths of the Clone Wars and why so many of us love the Clone Wars TV show was it added to the worst Star Wars movie and made the stories that were told in that into something that fitted into the universe and made some of the characters in there some of our favorite characters. We have, Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker himself and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Their relationship all comes from what we saw in the Clone Wars. And now with the Bad Batch and the recent shorts that were done, the animated shorts that were done, we're now finding out much more about Count Dooku and what his legacy was. He was a great character played by Christopher Lee, but wasn't really filled in very much in the movies that he was in. It was very much in the background. So this is something that I think the Bad Batch could really jump off of and start filling in more about him. He was very central to the Clone Wars. So having his legacy dealt with in this show, I think is a great choice.
Me so know what you mean. There is so better character, no? Ani. That was Jar Jar Binks for anybody. That's not just a terrible version of Count Dooku's accent. No, exactly. There is other characters that we really need more edges filled in on. Like when they make Jar Jar Binks a proper character, I'm gonna be happy. But let's wait.
I'm gonna say Clone Wars did a reasonably good job with Jar Jar. He wasn't as annoying in the Clone Wars TV show.
No, it's not that he wasn't annoying. We actually want to turn around that he was actually a Sith Lord, he was the one pulling the strings above Palpatine. Yeah. It'd be great. The greatest misdirection ever told.
Yes. He is the one that agreed to the Emperor's plan, though.
Basically,
when he stood in for Queen Amidala.
Well, that's it. They put someone totally and wholly unsuitable to be in the Galactic Parliament.
Or was he? That's the thing. See?
Exactly.
Sith Lord
he
Jar Jar.
he is the MacGuffin.
Yeah,
I guess.
So for me, I'm very much with you. It was actually, for me, it's the war crimes. It's the very adult aspects that are being glossed over, but kind of sprinkled in. So because of Dooku's kind of loss, they bombarded the planet and the cities from space, effectively wiping out not just him, or his legacy, but his planet, his people, his servants, as a way to wipe. Now, a younger audience member won't kind of start to see some of the problems and the deep parts of that. But when you start to get in, this is again the beginning of, they could start touching on this in the next season of Andor, or another show, one of the upcoming ones, where it's like, well, actually, yeah, there's all these people that were effectively mass genocided out of existence. Well, because of one lone dark Jedi. I just find that that's the aspects I start to find really interesting. The war chest is cool. I was hoping like the one that they would go into would have riches and then like a lone holocron.
Right.
That like it was going to be the beginning of more intrigue into Alpha and Omega and all of that.
I thought so too. I thought there was going to be some kind of artifact of some description there.
Something Jedi-y, just because you need to have, not that, sorry, and now we know with Andor, you don't need the space magic all the time. You don't need any of that. It's just when it is with Omega here as a character, it does make some sense to start to kind of thread some of that through. But again, we don't see that in this episode. So it's going to be interesting to see when they start sprinkling parts of that in. But yeah, the overall, you're right. Everything about this is just fun up to the point of it all goes wrong, which it inevitably does in a lot of the Bad Batch's missions.
Yeah. But they get themselves out of a lot of trouble, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Which kind of is our blaster point number 3.
Yes.
Yes, our blaster point number 3 is the mission itself, the plan itself. You know, we get lots of these throughout the Bad Batch season, so good to see the team working together. They didn't really have as much of a plan as I thought they were going to have.
No.
Because it started out as, let's go to the planet and raid the war chest and get everything that we need. And then they see the containers are being taken away and it's like, right, grab anything you can. Right. You go that way. I'll cause a distraction, says Hunter. And, then everything kind of falls apart.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I mean, I think the plan is, you know, they land the other side of the mountain ridge. It's kind of staying very much in the shadows.
Yeah.
But, we have Tech, Omega, and Echo caught on one of the cargo ships, whilst Hunter and Wrecker are still on the planet as this third and final massive cargo spaceship starts to take off.
Yeah.
But it seems like the linchpin that wasn't there was when Wrecker takes out one of the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And
I thought he'd know better than that. They're all on patrol and he just knocks one out and drags him away, and everybody else is kind of going, they're going to notice that guy's knocked out. That is something that will be noticed. That's what happens when someone's on patrol, right? But still, it's a fun little mission for the lot of them.
Yeah, definitely.
They do this was the one I'm like, these are all clones as well. All you need to do is just pick up the mic and just blah, 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 reporting in, sir. Oh, it's okay. There you go.
That's a good point.
That is a good point.
All of them have the same voice. They're slightly different inflections, but I'm pretty sure Wrecker, if he wanted to, could put on, well, not Wrecker maybe, but Echo could put on a standard trooper voice, the OG.
But that's it. I mean, even if they had, you know, a wardrobe with the white clone trooper outfit, so they could go in disguise, at least Echo and Hunter, and they could be the ones that, you know, are hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. See, maybe they just used that plan too much. They just wanted to go in all guns blazing this time.
Let's make things like, we'll crank up the difficulty level of this operation.
Exactly,
you know?
Exactly. You've done that when you've played a computer game. You've done that. Gone, I could do this stealthily, but I'll cause an explosion. I'll knock out a guy over here. But what we do see within this is while Omega, Tech, and Echo are trapped, we do see, as Chris mentioned, the lessons that Omega has been doing do come back into play. She's the one that realizes that there are ways out of this container ship. Firstly, you can either get on the escape pods and get off there, but they jettison the escape pods pretty quickly, so they can't use those. And then she realizes that the container can, if dropped from the air, does have its own reentry boosters, which will save the container from crashing to the ground. So she's the one that suggests that, coming from the lessons that she's been learning. So,
I actually thought that the lead clone trooper here, I thought was very smart, in the sense of them ejecting all the escape pods so that the three couldn't escape. They knew that they were on board. So I kind of thought that was pretty smart of the clone trooper, or the pilot, just to eject all the escape pods, and bringing Omega to this alternative approach of how, they can get, themselves off this cargo ship, within the cargo container. So good escape plan.
Absolutely.
Lateral thinking from Omega as well.
Good job. And yes, showing that staying in school, kids, is the right thing to do.
Don't do drugs and stay in school.
Absolutely.
But do run off with your 5 weird uncles.
They're not that weird.
And learn weapons.
Yes.
Lots of weapons.
Also good lessons, yes.
Yes. Look, again, this is for me just kind of starting to show it's going to be the fun part of Omega in the future, which is she's learning the best and worst of each of the characters and kind of becoming that plus whatever she is herself.
Exactly.
So we'll start to see, I'm assuming, or I'm hoping, more and more so throughout this season, because we've got a lot of episodes this season, her maybe starting to kind of formulate her own plans, that type of thing. Like, at the moment, she's just kind of, she's still making mistakes, but in a useful way.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm interested to see how kind of it kind of continues, because we end this episode with them plummeting to Earth. That's it. And you're like, oh, thank God this is a 2-parter.
Exactly. We get to see the resolution to that in the next episode. But yeah, I kind of like the idea that it's her recommendation that they do this. They follow along with the plan, and yes, by the end of the episode, the reentry engines haven't fired. So nice little moment there. One of the things I always like about the Bad Batch, and what I enjoyed in last season as well, happens here. I like the kind of break-offs of the groups, different members of the Bad Batch working together, because I don't know what it is, but I like Hunter and Wrecker specifically together. I think because Wrecker is someone that is so able for the fight, so willing to blow things up and destroy things, and Hunter is the really technically minded leader. Having the two of them side by side, you're not sure whether Hunter really likes giving orders to Wrecker, and you're not really sure whether Wrecker likes taking orders,
or whether Wrecker will follow through on the orders of Hunter.
Yeah, but I do like the two of them together. They're very distinct characters, so I like having the two of them together. And then and Echo and Tech and Omega seem very different. You know, Wrecker's very protective of Omega, and Hunter's very protective. He's much more the actual father, and the rest of them are the uncles. So having her with her other two uncles is a nice split of the group as well. Like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Any other notes on the episode that we haven't talked about, guys?
None from me.
Nothing from me.
Only thing I wanted to point out, we do have the new member of the cast being added this season with Phee, the pirate, being played by Wanda Sykes, American comedian Wanda Sykes. Very recognizable voice when you hear her on there. So it was kind of cool to have her in there. I wonder how often we're going to see Phee hanging around in Ord Mantell.
Absolutely.
Oh, a lot. Come on. You don't get Wanda Sykes for just that.
No. As John mentioned, she does have a future plan and has come with some intel. So I'm sure we're going to see her later on in the season. But we were quite surprised when Sid appeared in almost every episode last season, played by Ray Perlman. So I wonder, will it be the same? Will we see Phee hanging around giving the Bad Batch missions as well as Sid, or will she take over Sid's role maybe in this season?
That could be it. We could lose Sid and now have a new Phee.
Yeah. Actually, interestingly, kind of one of my notes, which is they have that conversation where effectively Sid says, you know, once they arrive, that is the clones, the operations are over. like she will have to shut down.
That's
so
right, yeah.
it's kind of like, there are still, because of where it is between, the Republic and the Empire, these autonomous worlds are still very much there, but there is this real kind of danger of the Empire, the clones coming in, and these operations that Sid is getting, the Bad Batch going, will be crushed because of the massive kind of oversight that they bring once they occupy these worlds. Yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting point, this notion of the Empire closing in.
Absolutely.
Still sort of feeding out into the galaxy.
Absolutely. And I really like the discussion with her about freedom. What is freedom to the Bad Batch? They have their ship and they're able to go anywhere in the galaxy, but they're not really free. She's telling them that this is the kind of score where they need to do a big job, get the score, be able to be free and do what they want to do, because they're not going to be able to do that very soon. As you mentioned, if they wait too long, they may not be able to get free. So I thought that was an interesting discussion as well. And also that conversation that was there between Hunter and Echo, where Hunter's really concerned about the fact that they've pulled Omega into a fighting team, effectively, who are going on these missions, and Echo's kind of going, but we saved her. It was the right thing to do, but there's so many more people that we should be saving in the galaxy. This is our life now, and we should be working together to save people. So we kind of wondered, would they pivot from that role last season where they were going out in missions to go and steal things, and would they pivot to become helpers of people across the galaxy? And it seems like that's getting more and more needed as the Empire grows in power. So I like those little touches in the background conversations as well, in a fun episode filled with lots of action. So yeah, it's cool. Overall, do you guys have a rating for this episode? John, you normally give a rating for these, don't you?
I give it 3.5 scrumptious crab fests out of 5. Another benefit of completing the mission is it was a crab party all the way back at Sid's.
Oh, I love crab. Yeah.
I just thought I thought it was just a good opener. It was with the mission on the crab world, then with the mission on Dooku's planet of Serenno. Just really good. All these little snippets of, the notion of the Empire closing in as well. Seeing, Omega having sort of taken on board Tech's, notion of swatting up, on the info, but also seeing her being pretty proficient in the combat setting on the crab planet as well. And I like this kind of this reluctance of Hunter to engage in missions that are involving the Empire, to keep the Bad Batch off the radar of the Empire that is closing in as well. So really, really enjoyed this first episode off the bat.
Yeah, it's good to be back with the Bad Batch, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Can't wait to start episode 2. Any final words, Chris, on this episode?
No, just very much want to see how the Batch are going to get out of this one.
Yeah, it would be terrible if 3 of them were killed in a container crashing to the ground in the next episode.
There you go. And it's like, boom, done. No, that's it. Surprise!
Yes,
this is season 2.
The bad splash. I like it, John. I like it. Thanks so much for joining us for our discussion of the first episode of The Bad Batch Season 2. We'll be back with the second episode later today, Ruins of War.
Indeed, yes. Thank you so much, fellow Batchers, for joining us. It is a pleasure, as always.
Yes, and if you enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all the usual things. Head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com where you can find all the links where necessary. Make sure you share the podcast, because sharing the podcast is what, gentlemen?
Sharing the love.
Yes. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you again next time.
All right, bye.
Yeah, bye, fellow Batchers. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep being bad. Bye.
Bye.